I want to give you, not you probably, but our listeners,
Mm,
a little more insight into living with anxiety.
mm,
Because part of living with anxiety is being unable to ignore the thin veneer that is just barely holding our society together,
mm.
by which I refer to customer service. So, Scooter's Coffee.
Mhm.
You know Scooter's Coffee? It's a drive-in coffee place.
Yeah, there's a new one over by your wife's work.
Why, yes, there is.
Mhm.
Up to this point, I only knew Scooters as a drive-through coffee place right where you get back on the highway from the dispensary that I like in
Mm,
Illinois.
mm, mm.
Only when I'm visiting Illinois, I, of course, would never bring them across state lines. Anyway, and I was always like, yeah, Scooters, that's just a silly little name, whatever. And then one time I was driving Coralville, and I'm like, there's another Scooters.
Mhm, mhm.
And then they spent 8 years to build one right over by ACT. And I, as I think we have discussed, have recently sort of slid into the whole overly complicated coffee drink world.
Mm,
I mean, I like coffee and I've liked those things, but it's always been stuck for me because it involves a lot of sugar. But
mm.
in recent years, they have developed some sugar-free sweeteners and flavorings. More, I thought more than there were, but it appears to be that vanilla, hazelnut, and caramel are just the really easy ones to do.
Mm.
So, like a good old latte with one of those with sugar-free hazelnut or something I really enjoy. So, Scooters opens, and I'm like, let's check out Scooters. And I go to Scooters, and I go to Scooters too much now.
Really?
Um,
Huh.
Probably, I mean, at least once a week, probably about twice a week. I will go through there, and it's nice. And they got a bunch of non-coffee stuff, and they got little breakfast bite things, which are pretty tasty. They're all screaming hot. Weirdly, the coffee is pretty drinkable when I get it. I mean, you can get it iced, but I get it hot. But like I'll get like a bagel sandwich, and I can't even open the bag. I think it just lives in some sort of chafing dish that is like really hot. But
Uh,
um, and the employees are super nice,
hmm.
and it actually cracked me. So their version of pull up to the next window is scoot on down. They all say it. I went to the one in Illinois that I went to, which apparently it's a big chain. I went to the one in Illinois and said, I've just gotten hooked on you guys because they opened one near me. And she said, where is it? And I said, oh, it's in Iowa City. And she said, oh, because around here, this is a personally owned franchise and they own 18 of them in the Quad Cities. And
Oh,
I was like,
wow.
wow, scooters is a thing. Um, if there is scooters where you are, I recommend them. It's good. But so they're super nice at Scooters, and like I've been there a lot now, and so there's a lot of different people. They're all super nice, and just today she was nice and just laughing with me or whatever. We didn't talk about anything, but she's like, "Have a good rest of your day," and da, 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 all this, and it just made me feel pretty good. And then I was like, of course, it has the potential to be completely fake. She's being paid to be nice to me. Maybe things suck for her right now and she's just really good at like there's no way to anytime you have a customer service experience. I mean, anytime you have a human experience, but particularly in a customer service situation, like there's no way to know how fake it is. They have a financial incentive to be nice to you no matter what, essentially. A lot of places are good and like stop being nice when it's abusive or whatever, but like in general, they have a financial incentive, regardless of their mood, to be friendly and nice to you and act like they're your friend. And this is also the prime reason why you should never hit on someone or ask someone out when they're working, because they're literally being paid to be nice to you and you can confuse the thing. And it's also why there's a traditional trope, I don't know how true it is, that guys often think that their prostitute really likes them and that they're special or whatever. And it's like, yeah, no, they're paid to make you feel that way. But so then I end up in a situation where I'm like, oh, I really feel good. But was it all fake? Maybe she was secretly like, I know she was literally paid to be nice to me. She might be nice otherwise, but I have no idea of knowing. Like what? So then it becomes like, should I be happy about that? Like, is it weird? And I mean, these are the things that I think about on the regular. So if you don't have anxiety, or if you're wondering if you do have anxiety, if none of this resonates with you, you probably don't. And you're probably a fairly normal person. If it does resonate with you, there are a lot of good meds out there. I'm currently on escitalopram combined with buspirone. Highly recommend if you happen to have my exact physiology. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Magical Talking Hat Podcast, the only podcast in the world that is constantly worried that you're just pretending to like them. Not you, William, the listeners. They're at home. I assume they're at home like laughing and shit, but I assume they're just doing it for my benefit. I'm Tony.
I'm William, and this is episode 699.
I'm excited. This week I'm going to have to tell my therapist that I can't see her anymore because I'm going to try and become your client in my newly crafted lifelong goal of finding a way to sue you for our friendship. If you are just joining us for the first time, we have a hat to magical. In that, it has its own email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com. And people like yourselves write into that email address, themagicaltalkinghat@gmail.com, whatever the crap they want. The hat, in its infinite wisdom and magicitude, forwards the emails to us. We read them, talk about them. That's the show, except most of the show is not that. Earlier, when you were joining and all of your sound was fucked up, I was commenting on the fact that every YouTube, you're the thumbnail.
I am?
Yes, just you. And what's more, it's always you laughing.
Oh, okay.
Is every single one is just you, and just like in mid laugh.
Okay.
Don't know what that's about. And especially lately, every single one is eerily similar because you're always wearing the chicken hat.
The chicken hat, yeah.
So like every single one, it looks like you could take them and it'd be like a flip book of you just like like they're all so. But I have no idea why it won't do side by. I feel like it used to do the side by side picture, which is what we're seeing, and what I think people are seeing when they watch the video. But now the thumbnail is always you and always in like mid laugh. I'm a little offended.
Maybe they've got an AI or something that says, "Oh, the appealing thing for people to see is someone having a good time or laughing."
And I hate this, so I'm seldom.
No, but
maybe,
I'm like,
maybe the AI is just like he's got way too much going on.
Yeah. I mean, you can see my face better, and I'm closer up to the camera. Though all of that probably plays a part.
I totally should get a green screen just
plus even if the algorithm was picking easily pick out you laughing as me, I laugh far more than you do in this thing. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because again, hate it.
Yeah, hate it. Statistically, I'm gonna be the one.
How's your week? Besides, I'm guessing way too hot.
Oh my gosh, wasn't it terrible?
But tomorrow. But this actually freaks me out. So traditionally, if you don't live in the Midwest of the U.S., you don't. But like in the summer, it gets hot and it gets humid and it gets hot and it gets humid, and then it like storms. And then depending on the way it works, sometimes then it just gets hot and humid. But sometimes it storms and the humidity's gone and the temperature drops and it's great. Starting tomorrow, it's going to be cool enough. I'm probably going to open the house. But what's going to happen is today it's hot, it's humid, it's hot. And tonight it doesn't get very low. It only gets down to like 70 because it's still fucking hot. And then the next day it's just only going up to like 72. and there's no rain or anything. So I don't understand that. I mean, I'm sure there's reasons. Maybe just the weather front's moving on, but I'm like, there's no breaking of the tension, as it
Yeah.
were.
Right.
It
Right.
just is like, no, the next day it's going to decide to go up less, and
Yeah.
then we'll be good.
Yep.
So I find that a little weird, but I'll take it because it's been too damn hot. So
I think whenever that happens, it's often rained somewhere. So like, and we're
then it,
so, yeah, we're somehow getting the benefit without it happening
and
to us.
that is a thing. It pulls the weather fronts get pulled around because of other ones and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we got a hurricane happening now down in Florida, so who knows what
Fair
sort of
enough.
butterfly effect that might have on things.
You don't know. El Nino or an El Nina, those are things that are happening in the
La
Pacific
Nina,
Ocean.
El Nino, La
Sorry,
Nina.
you're right, La Nina. It's happening somewhere in
Keep your gender
the Pacific,
articles.
right? So that's as
Yeah,
almost as far away as you can
I
get
don't
from
know
us.
where the boy is right now.
So
Or do
yeah,
we call him Jesus? Because sometimes Jesus is referred to as El Nino in Spanish.
sometimes,
So
yeah.
is it Jesus that's been doing this to it? And who's the girl? I don't know who the girl is.
I don't know, but I mean that's Catholicism for you. You know, calling Mary the Lady, Our Lady, right?
Yeah,
It's
but never the girl.
well,
That's
no,
different. That's like Jesus' twin sister,
but
Jesus.
calling baby Jesus the child
Mhm.
or the babe or whatever, that's also
The
a thing.
boy. The boy.
The boy, yeah.
Like that horror movie.
Uh,
Anyway, how's your week been? I asked you earlier and you didn't answer. Maybe because I just started talking again. I don't know. We'll never know. So now I'm asking a second time. How was your week?
yeah, it was good. Like you said, very hot. It wasn't a lot you could do outside or whatever. We watched so there's a new animated Batman, and this was actually just only started a couple days ago, so that didn't take up the week or anything, but that's probably the biggest sort of media related thing that we did, other than like, we were watching House of the Dragon and things like that, which I think concluded recently. Did
You
we
gonna do
watch the
Penguin?
last one? Yeah, probably. Probably. But so
Trish was shocked because she saw a trailer for that and she didn't remember that he was the Penguin in that movie because we didn't see that movie. And she was
mm,
like, "That's Colin Farrell." I'm like, "Yeah,
mm,
he's been doing this for a while."
mhm. But yeah, the new animated Batman, which Bruce Timm is doing, so there is some stylistic similarities. It's interesting. I wouldn't say I it's not as good as the animated series. Not even close, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
but nothing probably ever will be. That
that's
was
probably true. That's probably true. But like even the animation doesn't seem to be up to par, which is weird. But the voice acting is good, and I like the characterizations of all the characters. I think that's good. They make some bold choices. Some I think work and some don't, but I'm glad they're making them. About I'm not going to say what they are because they would be spoilers. But they changed some characters in how they usually appear in the comic books, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that worked. Or I don't. I mean, maybe this was a good idea on paper, but the execution didn't work. I don't know. Um, but the guy who's voicing Batman, I can never remember his name. He was the priest in Midnight Mass. What's his name?
Bruce Wayne. Uh, Hamish Linklater?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And he's
I
doing
did not know he was doing Batman now.
yeah,
Wow.
it's good. He does a good job with it,
Wow.
I
I
think.
am quite a fan of his in general.
Well, I wouldn't have recognized. I mean, he does something with the voice for Bruce and for Batman, right?
Okay.
And neither one are to me very recognizable as him.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think he does a great
I didn't
job.
know he even did voice acting. I have
I didn't either.
over the years become a fan of him because he's had a very long career, but most of it wasn't like he did like sitcoms and shit for a
Mm,
long time. But I saw those because I used to watch a lot of sitcoms. He was Julia Louis-Dreyfus's brother in New Adventures of Old Christine. He was a major character in that short-lived CBS sitcom with Robin Williams and Sarah Michelle Gellar. He was like the tertiary character in that.
Hmm.
And he's been in a lot of things. And then Legion was, I think, the thing that really got him going.
Hmm.
And now he's been doing a bunch of stuff. And of course, Midnight Mass was huge, all that. But I'm really a fan of his in general. I didn't know he did voice work.
Well, so some of the other voices, I think, oh, do I recognize that person? I looked him up and I didn't know them. But I looked his up just because I had no clue, but I was interested in whoever was voicing Batman, you know?
Yeah.
And I looked at, I mean, now that I know it's him, I kind of hear it.
Yeah. Once you can know to listen for it. You can,
Yeah, but
whoever. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, voice acting is its own kind of skill, right? There's some really good actors who can't voice act, right? Because it's a whole other thing. But he nails it. I mean, he does a very, very good job. Very good job.
And it is fun. Well, as we all know, I have my biggest superpower in the world besides being able to take all the groceries out in one trip, no matter how many there are. Which, to be fair, is a superpower a lot of big boys like me have. My superpower is I can always recognize Cree Summer.
That is a superpower because she's in everything, but you can't always tell.
She's in everything, and she has a very broad range of voices.
That's right. Yeah.
I catch it.
Wow.
I don't know why or how, but I just know every iteration of her voice. Wow. And what's funny is I always knew her for the longest time as an actual live actor. She did very little in front of the camera acting, but that's where I knew her first. She was one of the leads on A Different World through the whole run of it.
Oh.
But very little in front of the camera otherwise. She's been doing voice acting since she was fairly young. And that's most of what she does, but I can spot it every time.
Well, I actually cannot. Like, I see her name on just about everything, as you know, and I'm like, oh, she was in this too? Which one was she?
She's in a hard time. Everything.
She's really good. If there's
something that has more than a dozen voices, I think it's like legally required she has to be in it.
But she'll do more than one.
Video games, TV shows, movies, everything.
Yeah, and she'll do more than one, and it's like, wow, I didn't even catch that those were the same. I mean, some people do more than one and you can tell, right? But not with her, you can't. She's really good.
She's right up there with the class. I'm getting pretty good at some of the classic ones. Rob Paulsen, the dude who does I can't remember his name now, but the guy who Rob Paulsen did Pinky, and the guy who did the Brain is also somebody that I frequently recognize. Maurice something, I think. There's a few of those. The guy who does SpongeBob, you can usually pick him up in things, stuff like that. I'm getting better at something. Cree Summer.
And the guy that does Bender, what's his name?
John DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to be confused with Joe DiMaggio. But yes, John DiMaggio. And Hamill. Hamill's another good one. Hamill fools me sometimes. It's another one of those, like, once you're told, you can hear it.
Right.
But not before then kind of thing. I'm kind of probably done with Gotham Knights already. I don't know. But when I was playing Gotham Knights, Batman's dead. But we get, like, recordings and flashbacks of him talking.
Oh.
I don't know who it is. It's not Kevin Conroy. But it's somebody doing it the way he did it. And it keeps fucking with me because, like, they'll start a sentence and I'll be like, did Kevin Conroy do this? And then halfway through the sentence, I'm like, no, that's definitely not him. But, like, it's close enough that I keep for a second being fooled. And even though I don't like Batman and don't watch a lot of Batman or anything, Kevin Conroy's the voice of Batman at this point in my head.
Yeah, me too.
It's either him or Adam West. Like, or if you're gonna do something funny, it's the Christian Bale one, because that's a trope. But so it's very weird to keep hearing this that almost is Kevin Conroy, but it's definitely not. And his last performance as Batman was in Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, which is sad.
Yeah, that is sad.
And was way later. Like, he did it a long time. The part of the reason is his last one, it took him so long to get that thing over the plate. So he had done it years earlier. And apparently, it is cool if you play that game to hear him doing it again. But who cares?
So I think Kevin Conroy playing, if Kevin Conroy counts as playing Batman, which of course I think he should, most people do, he played Batman longer and in more things than anyone.
Yeah.
I think, as that's well established. And I was thinking about that with Wolverine. Has Hugh Jackman played Wolverine longer and in more things than anybody else?
I think unquestionably.
Yeah.
Because not that many people have played Wolverine, and those that have not done it for very long. I mean, basically, the closest you'd get is the animated series.
Like if someone did the voice for all the iterations or whatever over like 15 or 20 years or something, which I wouldn't know if that's true.
I don't think it is, but even then, because they weren't super long running.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, if we want to get down to like number of lines voiced or something, definitely. But like, no, I think it is.
I find that actually pretty extraordinary, that especially given what we've learned about Hugh Jackman over the years, that he actually doesn't even like this kind of gig. He likes musicals and stuff like that, and he's played it in so many different, like Logan, for example, very different, right? Than
Oh yeah.
and in this new one, haven't seen. I don't know if I will, but it's like I think it's supposed to be a variant kind of thing, like a closer to the cartoon variant or something. It's like, this is pretty extraordinary that
It's
he's done this.
complicated. I've talked. My friend saw it, and I watched the pitch meeting. I'll put it this way. Remember, did you watch the Loki TV show?
Yeah.
The TVA gets involved.
Okay. Well,
So,
it's
and in fact, the movie is basically just cameos. It's 1,000 cameos,
mhm.
including cameos of actors playing characters that they never actually played, but they were going to in a movie that didn't happen. Kind of like when they did the Nick Cage Superman.
Yeah.
They've got one of those in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't know. It seems like he's a pretty good sport, really, to do this for so long and in so many different ways, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that's pretty cool. I mean, like Logan, for all intents and purposes, they could have, I don't know, should have even maybe cast someone else completely for that, because it was a whole different thing. But no, they cast him. He wanted to do it. He did it so well. I don't know. I'm just kind of impressed by that. But I don't know. Because some people, if they get known for a character, they kind of get a little down on it after a while. It's like, oh, the
Oh
only,
yeah.
people, and especially if it's not their thing. Like his is musicals. That's what he likes. But for him to just sort of embrace it and I don't know, appreciate it, have gratitude for it and what it's done for him professionally and personally, and to appreciate the fans like that. I mean, to me, that's a person doesn't have to do. I totally understand, like William Shatner getting tired of Captain Kirk for after a while. I totally understand that, but I also can appreciate someone sort of embracing it, and appreciating what it's given them in their life, and appreciate the fans who love them so much. I mean, I think that's pretty cool. But I don't know.
I couldn't stick with it. I did one movie where I played Wolverine, and I hated it so much that I refused to ever do it again.
Well, one thing, they wouldn't let you wear your caftan. I mean, why? Why wouldn't? Yeah, why wouldn't Wolverine? I mean, he'd wear a caftan. Why wouldn't he?
He's always getting ripped off anyway. I don't care.
Yeah, right. So how was your week?
Fairly uneventful. I'm trying out this new video game, Nobody Wants to Die, and it's a weird neo-noir detective sort of thing. And I really want to like it. And I don't know, the story is not that interesting, and there's a lot of things to do, and none of them matter. It's basically a visual novel that has a lot of mini games in it, but they're not like games you can lose. There's a lot of detective stuff, but the game tells you what to do, and you do that, and then it tells, like, you can't not. You're just sort of following the story, and the story so far is not that interesting. I don't know. We'll see. It's a very short game. I'll probably finish it, but it looks really pretty. It's very much Blade Runner without the Asian influence. It's Blade Runner, but it's all 1940s Gotham vibe.
Hmm. Hmm.
But we got flying cars and huge metropolises and all that. But yeah. I saw a couple movies. I want to talk about those, and then we will get to email because I really want to get to email.
Okay.
Oh, we are in third season of Reservation Dogs, and we have 2 episodes of Ted Lasso. All right. So I saw Problemista.
Hmm. That sounds
It's
familiar, but
available
I
on Max.
haven't seen it, but that sounds familiar.
Um, it's a A24 comedy drama starring well, written, directed, and starring a young man by the name of Julio Torres, who I didn't know before this, and also starring Tilda Swinton.
Hmm.
These are the main characters within this. Um, we saw a trailer a long time ago, and I was kind of very excited for it, and then it happened, and no, it didn't. I keep wanting to say I didn't get it. I feel like I got it. It just didn't do it for me. So also, it's one of those where the trailer lies.
Hmm.
The trailer makes you think it's a very fantasy sort of movie,
Hmm.
and it's all about this young man who is from El Salvador, and he has immigrated to the U.S. to try and find a job. He wants to be a toy maker at Hasbro.
Hmm.
But due to circumstances, he's in danger of getting deported.
Hmm.
And the trailer puts you in this sort of fantasy world where being deported from the US causes you to no longer exist, straight up. Like literally when your extension is denied or whatever, the person vanishes in
Hmm.
the moment. Like the paper they were holding falls to the ground, and it's just how it is. And there's a lot of implications of like weird monsters you're gonna have to. All of it's fucking metaphorical. All of it is just, I mean, it's not quite as explicit as like we know it's his daydream, but it's very much like it's all just a metaphor. Like that, none of that is really happening.
Hmm.
And that felt very disingenuous to me and kind of I mean, it's definitely making some serious points about the way we look on immigrants in this country and the fucked up social systems we have in place, and the sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of things, and the way we sometimes ignore people's problems, our own, and it's saying things, and I think it's saying things that are very personal to this young man, because the whole thing screamed, "This is my first filmmaking project" to me.
Hmm.
But I looked it up, and it is definitely not.
Hmm.
He's been doing a bunch of he's a hot shit right now. He co-created or created the TV show Los Spookies, which I still haven't watched, which is a comedic ghost hunting show in Spanish that
Hmm.
I've been meaning to watch. Uh, he created the thing that is on Max right now called Fantomas, I think. I don't know anything really about it, but it's some sort of like anthology show that has some pretty big names in it.
Hmm.
He has been for several years now been writing on all sorts of late night shows and things like that. So I mean, dude's been doing some shit.
Hmm.
This just feels so, it's very weird, but it's not, I don't know. I bounced off it pretty hard. It doesn't help that it is yet again one of those things where I'm not particularly sympathetic to most of the characters. Even in the moments where I'm supposed to be, I'm like, yeah, but you're still an asshole. Like, I don't uh Tilda Swinton's character in particular is awful, and that's sort of the thing is she potentially will sponsor his visa, so
Hmm.
he sort of ends up doing stuff for her, but she's awful.
Hmm.
And that's things happen there, and we sort of learn to sort of cope with her or whatever. But I'm still just like, I don't know. I bounced off it real hard. Uh, Other
Hmm.
people may have a different experience. I believe the film was well received critically. It has a lot of good performances in it. It's sitting on Max if you want to watch it, but it didn't do it for me.
Hmm.
Um, And now, to discredit that opinion, I'm going to talk about the second movie, which I highly recommend, and it's terrible.
Oh, okay.
We were going to pay money for it, but it has just moved to Netflix. We saw the PG-13 horror movie Tarot.
Oh, yeah, we haven't seen that one.
Everybody hates this movie,
Yeah, they
and
do.
with good reason. But what's hilarious is it's not just a straight up terrible movie. It has moments that are really good,
Oh,
or not really good, but like its main issue is it's a PG-13 horror movie
mm,
that sometimes tries to be sort of goofy
mm,
and not serious, and other times tries to be very serious, and that does not work.
yeah.
But it's super entertaining and just ridiculous. And for those of you who don't know, it's a Ouija movie, but what if it was tarot cards and horoscopes instead?
Oh, horoscopes are in
It
there too,
combines
huh?
them. Yes, apparently the key to serious divination is to combine tarot cards and horoscopes together, and then it gets real cool. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to spoil the shit out of it because tension is not the point of this film at all. So I'm not normally, when I don't care about spoiling, I'm like, don't see it. No, everybody go see this. It's hilarious. Although with a little alcohol or weed, it would probably be even better. But um, some college students rent a mansion,
Mhm.
like Airbnb that shit, I guess.
Mm.
And in the process, break into a private area they're not supposed to go into. That's a base. It's basically the basement from Cabin in the Woods. It's just like all sorts of spooky shit.
Mhm.
And they find a set of tarot cards.
Mm.
And one of them is really into tarot, and so they convince her to do readings for everybody with horoscopes. And it turns out the cards are cursed, and anybody who gets a reading done on them dies, thematically tied to their reading, which doesn't always work. So it says thematically tied to their. Well, part of the thing is the readings can give advice and things. And what we quickly find out is if you follow the advice, you won't die.
Mm.
Except we kind of don't find that out. We just over and over and over again find out that if you don't follow the advice, you die. Because
Mm.
nobody, literally one of them, the horoscope or the reading was talking about like, you tend to run when there's conflict and tension. For once, maybe you should just stay where you are. And guess what? It happens. The thing happens, and they even say that to her. They're like, "Oh, don't run." Like everybody else is like, "Don't run," and she runs, and she dies. Like this happens over and over and over and over and over again. They're stupid, stupid people. Um, but what I love is it's the theme is, generally speaking, the they did a reading style I've never seen before, and in the center it always came up a major arcana, of course,
Mhm.
and basically that major arcana kills you, is what it is. And sometimes it's thematically accurate because sometimes it's the magician and
Mm.
you die in this elaborate like fake magic show and get sawn in half,
Mm.
which is surprisingly effective, freaky for being PG-13 and not being able to show the gore. They did a pretty good job of making it scary. Sometimes it's the hanged man, and the hanged man from the card shows up as a CGI abomination and uh, has a rope and hangs you. Sometimes it's the hermit, and you're just in a place where there aren't other people, and the hermit, again a CGI abomination from the cards, just shows up in pieces and pushes you in front of a subway train. And sometimes it's the high priestess, and what's happening is she's just hanging out in an attic, and when you go up to look, she scares you, so you fall down the ladder, and then she just picks up the ladder and smashes it into you until you die, you know, like priestesses do. Like most of these kills, you could have switched out any other arcana you wanted and it'd be fine.
Mm. Mhm.
Other highlights include the fact that there is specifically a comedy relief character, and it's played by the dude who is Spider-Man's best friend, Ned, from the Tom Holland Spider-Mans.
Mm.
And he's really good at it, and he's a fun time, and you like him. Like, he's a dumbass, and he's annoying, but he's it's very charming. He's a fun time. And then I'm just gonna throw this out there because it's amazing. I literally had to stop the movie to laugh my ass off for like 5 minutes. So in one of them, the aforementioned hermit situation, he ends up accidentally in a part of the subway system that he's not supposed to be in, and there's nobody there, and it's spooky and walk around, and he steps on a newspaper that's on the ground, an old newspaper, and the newspaper in question shows a picture of him and the headline, "You die today."
Oh.
And in case you're wondering, no, this in no way ties to there's no like newspaper reference or anything. And also, this is not the comic relief character. So, but yeah, it's a funny time. It's a hell of a time. Also, here's a real fun one for me. So, I don't know the actor's name, but she's having a major moment right now. She's an old lady actor, very long white hair, and she fairly recently was in. Well, she's been in a few things. She's the old lady in that Watchers movie,
Mm.
the Shyamalan one that just came out, where they're stuck
Yeah.
in the woods and they. Yeah, I don't intend to see it, but she's in all the trailers for that. She the most recent from like 2 years ago Texas Chainsaw movie that they made that everyone hated had someone in it playing the character that survived the original Texas Chainsaw movie,
Mhm.
and they made that character like she's a Texas Ranger now and stuff, and she's gonna go get him, and she's been waiting for decades for this. They were very clearly ripping off the Halloween reboot.
Mhm.
Um, and she shows up and doesn't kill him, and then gets killed
Oh
pretty early on,
gosh.
doing
Wow.
almost nothing. And she's played by this woman. So this woman is in this movie as well. And we
Okay.
find her and find out she's like the only one to have survived this evil tarot deck before. And she gives us the exposition backstory for it. And she has been trying to track down this deck for decades to stop its evil and finally destroy it. So anyway, the people leave to go do that. She doesn't come along for some reason.
Okay.
And then shit gets bad, so they call her and she shows up
Mhm.
and dies just right away.
Hmm.
And at the time, I was like, this is very. I didn't watch the Texas Chainsaw movie. I've never watched any of the Texas Chainsaw movies. I think they're all garbage, except the first two, arguably. And both of those seem like I would not enjoy them. Um, but I've seen enough because people like to make fun of it. Like, her arc seems very similar here. Like, spent years plotting revenge. Finally has a lead. Dead. So that was weird. But no, I highly recommend Tarot, not for money, but if it's on Netflix, because it's a very bad movie. I had a very good time. It was a very good time. So, um, throwing that out there. Trish found it a while back. She's like, because she knows I love Ouija board movies, and she's like, it's a Ouija board movie, except it's tarot cards.
You do? You like the Ouija board movies?
I love the Ouija board movie. I mean, they're all bad except for the prequel to Ouija, which is Ouija Origin of Evil, which is weird because Ouija sucked. And the prequel, Ouija Origin of Evil, was actually really good and was made by Mike Flanagan, which is part of probably why
Yeah,
it's so good.
that's why we saw that one. Yeah.
And that one, and it stands on its own. You don't have to watch the first one. First one has Olivia Cook in it, who I love, but no, it's bad. No, anytime I love all the Ouija movies because it's it's my thing. It's fuck around with the supernatural and get killed kind of shit. And they make bad ones too, but they always crack me up. Oh, and this is a fun one. As somebody who had a phase where I dealt with tarot cards, there's a thing in this where they're trying to convince the girl who knows about tarot to do all their readings and stuff because they're college kids and they're bored. And she's like, I don't know. There's kind of an unspoken rule that you don't use somebody else's tarot cards.
Mm.
And I'm like, that rule is extremely spoken. I would say there is only one rule in tarot cards that everyone I've met all agrees with and already knows, and it's that rule. So I'm not sure it's an unspoken rule. But also, days later, Trish said to me, all this bad shit that happened was because the cards were cursed and possessed by an evil entity. Not really because they were someone else's cards.
Right.
Supposed to. So, in this context, that part didn't even really matter.
No, didn't really matter.
They were evil tarot cards. Less important that they were someone else's evil tarot cards.
Maybe they want you to think the reason you don't use someone else's tarot cards is because they could be evil.
Might be. Oh man, these are rough cards. Also, at the climactic moment, we're fighting with the evil monster witch crazy thing, and our main character is genuinely seems to be trying to give her a therapy session while they're attempting to destroy her and send her to hell. I can't explain it better than that, but it's hilarious. Watch the movie; it's great. Anyway, let's do it even. We actually have like 2 of them, so
yeah. I do want to say, so I've heard a lot of stories from people who feel like they've had a supernatural experience, and Ouija boards are disproportionately represented in these stories, like over and over again. And I'm saying people who think they've had real supernatural experiences and they feel like playing with a Ouija board was like what initiated it. Like that's a real popular story for people who are telling what they think is a real, something that really happened.
It is so prevalent that I would admit I might think twice before I use the Ouija board. I'd still do it. Like if somebody wanted to, I'd still do it because I don't actually believe in that stuff. But there's a little bit of like,
yeah, it's a real. It's kind of stunning how often.
Oh my God! I just realized jinxes might be real.
Why? Why?
Because of Virginia. I kept saying before the Virginia beach trip, it'll be way more fun this year because we're not all going to get COVID.
Oh.
And people are like, what are you doing? And I said, okay. If we all get COVID this time, A, it is definitely my fault because I'm the one who said it. And B, jinxes are totally real. And that didn't happen. But another terrible thing happened, made us I couldn't go to Virginia.
Yeah.
So maybe jinxes are real.
Maybe
no. Let's find out.
So Stu wants to know,
Stu,
do you still watch live TV or listen to the radio?
We have to pick. You get one or the other.
He probably wants to know if both, like both of them. Do we do it? A live broadcast, I think, is what he's asking. Like a live radio broadcast or live TV broadcast, right? Not streaming, not recorded. I mean, and I don't suppose he means live, like they're presenting it live. I mean, we're watching it as it's being broadcast on the TV or listening to it as it's being broadcast on the radio, rather than streaming it, I think is what he means.
Go ahead.
Interestingly, until recently, I did sometimes watch, like, if an episode was being aired that night or whatever, that's when I'd watch it. I've never been actually much of a radio listener at all. In the 90s, I did for some reason. I think the reason was because the 90s was when I discovered alternative stations. I don't know if that's because there finally was one in Des Moines or something, and I lived in that kind of area. And I thought the alternative radio station, music station, was really interesting. And so I did listen to it. There have been times in my life where I've gone ahead and listened to like news radio, whether it's NPR, whether it's a local news radio or whatever, but not very much. So for me to say, no, I don't really listen to the radio, that's pretty much the rule for me for most of my life. As far as television goes, yeah, like when the WC show, like when Smallville was on and all that other stuff, I would watch it.
I think you combined WB and CW, and you said WC, which stands
Oh,
for water
sorry.
closet, which is a British term for
A
bathroom.
bathroom, yes. No, sorry, I meant the CW, but it was the WB before that. But anyway, yeah, I used to do that, but I think it's been a very long time since I did that. So no, I don't think there's any like broadcast media that I'm watching the thing or listening to the thing while it's being broadcast. I think everything now is, if I watch something or listen to it, it's a podcast, like, a podcast, something that's been pre-recorded that I'm sort of listening to on demand, right? Yeah. So no, I don't think I think it's been a long time since I took in some broadcasted media like as it was being broadcast. What about you?
The longest commute I ever had lasted 2, 3 years, something like that, and it was about 45 minutes each way. It was when I was working for the farming newspaper up in Cedar Rapids.
Uh-huh.
I was driving a car that was very old, and its radio only the AM worked,
Hmm.
and there was no tape deck or CD player or anything like that. So all I did was listen to NPR,
Hmm.
and it timed pretty well. So it was uh, the NPR. I forget what the morning thing was, and then All Things Considered on the way back. I was incredibly up to date on what was happening. Not a good time. The real short answer is no. The longer answer is more complicated. We straight up do not have live TV.
Oh, I think we
We
still
have
do, but
no
we don't watch
cable
it.
channels.
Hmm.
We have no, I mean, I suppose theoretic. No, I guess we don't even really have an antenna. So I could probably get some real fucked up ones if I wanted to terrestrially, but we have no cable channels. I pay for no live TV channels on, so many things. Hulu, YouTube, a bunch of them will do that for you. I have noticed some of the free with ads streaming services, Pluto, some of the other ones, have live TV in them,
Mm-hmm.
and they are live in the sense that you cannot pause them. I don't know that they are live in any reels. I don't believe they correspond to what you'd actually see on a TV channel. But I don't particularly watch those either. I will occasionally watch a live stream on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the time I won't even do that. I'll just be like, oh, that's what's out. Okay, I'll catch it later because usually it's just pre-recorded later
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on. So as far as television, no, basically not at all. Which is bad when the internet's down, because then I'm just fucked. But that's how I don't care about live TV anymore. I don't know. And if I just want something in the background, then I got plenty of things like that. Although I got to find some more TV shows to watch right now. My YouTube algorithm has exploded again, and so not a lot is going well there. I need to find some shows to watch. Um, Radio, again, technically no. Well, I guess technically yes. I don't listen to terrestrial radio, but we have a Sirius XM subscription that
Mm-hmm.
goes to our car.
Mm-hmm.
And Trish listens to it more than I do because I frequently just Bluetooth my phone and either play my Apple Tunes or my podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
But there is one EDM channel that I listen to on there, and there are like 3 stand-up comedy channels that we'll listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And Trish, in addition to the comedy channels, has some saved like 80s hits, 90s hits, one that's just called Coffee House or whatever. And I know she listens to those because sometimes I get in the car and it's turned on and that's what it's set to. But that is mostly it. Yeah, I don't. The only way I miss it is I used to have the sort of power to just turn on the TV and set it to some channel that just had nonsense in the background. And you can still have nonsense in the background without that, but you have to like consciously decide what your nonsense is going to be.
Right, right.
I have to decide what crap is on in the background. Common ones for me are the Jordan Breeding long story shorts. When I watch it the first time, I usually watch it, and then after that, if I'm like fucking around on my phone or whatever, if I know I really want to focus on what I'm doing on my phone, I'll put one of those on in the background or other frequently long videos I've already seen.
Mm, mm.
So like a previous live stream where the OX people played Mario Party or something like that. I'll put that on in the background. But in general, no, I do not. And I don't miss it.
Well, after a while, I mean, it got to be where it it wasn't like the least fun there was in watching some of these TV shows was having to get ready and to prepare for it to come on at 7 o'clock or whatever it was, right? That was like the least fun aspect of it. It's like I could easily watch this later. It's going to be on their site or whatever. There's 6 or 7 different ways to watch it later. It's kind of a pain to show up at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever when it's being broadcast on television. And the only reason you do that is because it can also be fun if you have like, when the kids were young, it was kind of fun to have us all together to do that kind of thing. It was also,
Appointment television.
yeah. And it was also, we also knew other people who were watching it who would talk about it, and that way we didn't get spoilers or whatever else. But after a while, you're like, yeah, no one's probably going to talk to me about this or anything. I'm not going
Well,
to
and
just
that
avoid.
becomes the thing because there's the online community. People who really want to talk about it
Yeah.
want to at least watch it the night it drops.
Yeah.
For that kind of thing. But I mean, we're at the point where we don't watch a show if the season hasn't finished airing. Usually, there are exceptions because some shows are very sort of self-contained in a way that we don't worry about.
But you can just avoid talking to people about it pretty easily now, and it's like I can watch this later. It's no big deal.
And I am sort of a little bit on purpose creeping more and more into a world where I don't worry about spoilers as much.
Yeah.
A lot of what limited sort of evidence they did on it says that actually not knowing spoilers is can often improve your enjoyment of films and things like that, and often doesn't hurt for most people. And it's also just a lot of work to avoid spoilers in a lot of cases. I'll still avoid the big ones, and there are still far too many projects out there where the only reason to consume it is to see the twist or whatever.
Yeah.
So if it's spoiled, then there is literally no reason to watch it.
That's right. That's right.
And I do kind of avoid those, but then it gets into where I mean, like, I got a pretty big spoiler for season 3 of Ted Lasso.
Oh, you did.
And it was the thing that well, and it was just a few seconds, like because it was one of those list videos, and it got the premise, and then I was like, oh shit, let me get out of here. But I'd already seen the premise of whatever the spoiler was, so I knew. But it was also what inspired me to be like, I got to get on this and watch it before everybody's just talking about it all the time. Because I watch a lot of videos talking about TV and movies and stuff all over the place. So I'm like, I got to get on this. It's also why I think my wintertime video game this coming winter is going to be Baldur's Gate 3, because that's getting complicated because everybody likes to talk about that game. And I already have some spoilers. Luckily, I have so little context that like it gets spoiled, and like I couldn't tell you a spoiler right now that I've been given because
right.
Retained or whatever. But like it's getting more and more, and that video game is more and more in the general conversation, not just the early everybody's excited about it conversation. So I'm like, I need to get like because like Cyberpunk 2077 might be a contender for my winter game. But people don't talk. I mean, I know some spoilers from it in general, but people don't talk about it the same way story wise as they do Baldur's Gate. So But yeah, I am pushing myself a little bit more and more to worry less about those things. Interestingly, I didn't really talk about it because it wasn't very good. I watched a movie called The Limehouse Golem, and it's a Victorian London serial killer. Like it could easily be a Jack the Ripper movie. It's not about Jack the Ripper. It's The Limehouse Golem, but it could easily be that. And it's our detective is Bill Nye, which is what drew me attention there. And also the female lead is Olivia Cook, who, as I mentioned earlier, I really like. It's not a bad movie. I wanted to recommend it to my mom, but it's very gory. Um, but mostly real early on, I guessed like what the twist was, who the murderer was.
Mhm.
And it wasn't even like, oh, maybe it's like as soon as I knew, I was like, yeah, clear. Like every single piece fell into place. So that was weird, and I don't know if that made it less entertaining or what. I don't know, but very quickly I was like, oh, it's probably this, and then afterwards like, yeah, see, it's yeah, and yeah, and yeah, no, it is. Um, so that was weird. But yeah, so mostly I do listen to the radio with Sirius, which we pay too much for. Um, Sirius XM is one of those things that you need to be constantly finding the deals because there's always deals, but the regular subscription price is stupid, and that's
Mm,
currently what we're paying. So.
mm.
Oh well. Um, been reading again finally.
Oh, that's good. I think I'm going to start up too here pretty
I'm
soon.
in the third Lockwood and Company book.
Mm.
I actually that was not going to be next on my list, but it had been long enough, and that was the one I really wanted to read because I'm really enjoying that series.
Mm.
So I didn't do uh, the next Three Body Problem book or the Robin Bales book. I think I've sent you the Dark Corners movie reviews guy. He's a British guy, and he mostly looks at old timey goofy movies and bad movies and stuff. But he's
Yeah,
also very much a film guy,
sure.
and um, he's written a bunch of books,
Oh,
and they're basically his. He made a Universal Monsters universe basically.
oh,
They're all they're all sort of set in the same world, and they're all retellings of those sort of stories.
hmm.
And I find him very interesting, and I find his reviews very interesting and entertaining. So I finally grabbed one of his books, but I haven't started it yet. So
Hmm.
um, if you read fiction, you might enjoy that.
I might. That does sound interesting.
But you don't read fiction.
Sometimes, although I admit my entire reading list right now is nonfiction, all of it at the moment.
Um, we got 2 more weekends, and then on that third weekend, we're going to medieval times.
Yep.
I
Like,
told the neighbors about it the other day, and they hadn't been, but they've been. Apparently, there's a variation in Vegas
oh,
that's like King Arthur themed more.
oh, interesting.
But it looks like it might be the same company because when they described the food, the courses match what I know of the food at medieval times.
Right.
And what he said was really good show. Do not get excited about the food. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of. I fully believe. I mean, I fully believe we are going to have a fun time.
Oh yeah. No
I
doubt.
also fully believe I'm gonna be like, yeah, I don't ever need to do medieval times. But I thought that would be the case with cruises, and I loved cruises. And so this is medieval times, cruises, Vegas. I would still want to do Vegas. I don't think I'm necessarily going to enjoy Vegas, but I want to try it and see.
Right, right, right.
Um, do you ever wonder? Sometimes, and it's never somebody I have a personal relationship. It's like somebody on the TV or somebody I meet passing in real life or whatever. And I really like them, and I really think they're a cool person. And then at a certain point, part of my brain is, you also find them very attractive. Do you actually think they're a cool person? Or do you just want to like them because you find them attractive?
Well, okay, so this question is kind of similar to the whole customer service question. It's like,
Except it's all in my head. I mean, it's all in my head. But this is about my feelings on the subject. And I
right, but
mentioned it because I've mentioned Olivia Cook twice
mm,
in this episode.
mm,
I think she's a very good actress.
mm,
If you said, okay, what have you seen her in? I would mention like three things, maybe four. And then you said, okay, which of those did you really like and find it to be a powerful performance? I could mention none. And at least two of the three or four things I actively disliked. But not necessarily her performance. But it's when I think about it, I'm like, I mean, she's good. I promise you, she is a competent, effective actress who should be getting work. But like, I really am like, oh, I'm a real fan, and I'm like, but why though? Like, you say you're a fan of her as an actor, but none of the performances you've seen in, you're like, oh, that was amazing. But you do find her very attractive. So is it? I mean, I promise you, she's not a bad actor, but I'm like, in my head, am I equating decent actor and I find attractive equals really good actor?
I mean, she's in House of the Dragon and she does a
She's
really
in a
good
bunch
job.
of stuff. She's very popular
Yeah.
and she's perfectly good. Like, I haven't seen a bad performance out of her, but she's somebody that I hold up as I'm like, she's a really good actress. And then I'm like,
What I,
is
what I
she?
was what I was getting at by combining those two things though is it seems to set up what seems somewhat of a false dichotomy, right? Like even just because a person's say paid to be nice to you doesn't mean they're not genuinely being nice
No,
to
no,
you.
no.
Or and just because she's attractive, well, there are a lot of good-looking actors that aren't going to be attractive. So obviously part of her
Yes.
acting ability is what and that charisma is what helps her be a good actor, right? I mean, that's part of being a good actor is having that
Potentially, it depends
charismatic.
on what I'm attracted to. Some people I'm just attracted to because they're really hot. And
Oh, okay.
don't get me wrong, there are plenty of actors out there that I'm like, I know they are an incredible actor and I can even pinpoint how and why. I
Sure.
also find them extremely attractive.
Okay.
Actually, this came up just watching Ted Lasso the other day. Hannah Waddingham is an amazing actor. I have seen her in a lot of things now. She every performance she does is so incredibly believable. I've seen a tremendous range. I've heard her do some voice acting. She is amazing. She's also an incredible singer. Will not hear a word against her acting abilities. And I love that. And I'm mesmerized when she's on TV. We were watching some episode and she was in a particularly attractive dress, and there was like a long shot of her like walking in the hall. I'm like, she's also super fucking hot. But like, I'm very much aware those are two separate feelings I have.
Okay.
But it becomes very common sometimes where I'm like, are they a great actor or are they a good actor that you think is hot? And I don't know sometimes.
Hmm.
And Olivia Cook, I think, is a really good example. I think she's good, especially because she's having such success. But I mean, like, what have I seen her in? Ready Player One. She did fine, but that movie wasn't very good. And that part wasn't very interesting. And in fact, a lot of the cool shit her character did in the book, they didn't have her character do. So, whatever. Slow Horses. I thought she actually was a standout performer in there, but I watched like two episodes and then stopped watching because I hated that show. So, that's no good. Limehouse Gollum, as I mentioned, kind of weak. She did fine. But I also think she's a very attractive person. So I often wonder, and I run into a few of these every once in a while, because I will say like, oh, I'm a big fan of so and so, and every time I say that out loud, my brain goes, why are you a fan?
Well,
And
she was
sometimes
in
my answer could be like, because of this performance and this performance, and they're amazing. Patrick Stewart, another good example. I find Patrick Stewart very attractive. I mean, now he's real old, but still but I've always found him a very attractive man. His abilities as a performer are out of this world and have nothing to do with his attractiveness.
well, she was also in Bates Motel and she had an
Oh,
American
was she?
accent. Yeah, she had an American accent and her character was she had an illness So she had to carry a oxygen tank and have,
Oh, I think I remember this. Yeah,
and so when I think of her performances, including that one, and yeah, I also think she's, she's good looking, of course, but
yeah.
she's also believable. I mean, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like sometimes a person's acting chops are really not about bringing some gravitas or doing some really interesting character actor thing or whatever. It's just that whatever they're doing, you believe it. And I mean, that might sound really basic, and it is, but I mean, a lot of people can't do that. That's the difference between a person who can act and a person who can't, right?
And like I said, no question, she's a good actor.
Well, yeah, a competent
I
actor,
just
sure.
hold her in high enough esteem that I'm like, what am I basing this on? And again, she's just sort of an example, but I do run into this. There are times where I'll find myself in a conversation where I'm like, I really think so and so is a good actor, and then later I'm like,
Yeah,
eh,
I think I know what you're talking about. Like there's certain people that Abby and I like to watch that uh, female actors, and you're like, do we just like watching this person? Well, here's an example. Um, maybe this is an example. Well, let me say this, and you can tell me if you think it's an example. So, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Um, she really does look the part, and when she fights, she's really good at that, like the physicality of it. But is she a good actor? Like, is she bringing acting chops to it, or is it just that it looks good? I mean,
I
I
think
think,
this might be the best example
yeah, I
because
think,
I am coming to the realization I think Gal Gadot might be a bad actor.
yeah,
Like, I mean, and again, like she's got a good look, and she does a lot of great stuff with stunt and
yeah,
action
the
stuff, but
physicality of it's good.
she kind of plays one kind of boring character in
Yeah, yeah,
every
yeah,
role. And I've seen her cast as villain and hero,
yeah.
and it's still kind of the same
Same thing. Yeah.
one
Yep.
character.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
No, I think that's a tremendous example
Yeah.
of exact. Or the other direction. Well, not the other direction. Very similar thing. Speaking of Red Notice, The Rock. I won't say that I'm super hot for The Rock, but he's a good looking man. But mostly he's just a charismatic, entertaining man to watch perform. In most
Mm,
things I see him in, I enjoy watching him in movies. I would never call him a good actor. I might even call him a bad actor, though not to his face because I'd be terrified. But I have fun watching him.
his voice acting though, including his singing in Moana, was really good.
Yeah. It's true.
Off the scale good.
Um,
Like I was surprised because I like you, I feel like he's a competent actor or whatever, but it's
I
like,
mean, he's functional, but
yeah,
it,
he's no
it's
draw.
not even fair to call these people bad actors. They play one role in everything, and it's not a particularly complex
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
situation.
yeah. Right. Right.
And they're not character actors. You know?
No, right. Exactly.
Um, so the concept definitely exists,
Yeah,
and
I follow it.
sometimes it's like because you used a broader term for tracking. I mostly meant physical, but you're right. Well, this always cracks me up. So tabletop role playing, traditional D&D and stuff. One of your stats is charisma,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the books and everything explain in great detail. This as with all of them. This is a very broad stat. It can mean a lot of things, um, and in particular, it can mean interpersonal charisma. It can also mean physical attractiveness
Mm-hmm.
and some combination of that. And when we were kids, it's frequently the stat you don't put much into. It's it's what we call a dump stat, where it's like I put no points into this, so I have more points for all my other stuff. So we'd make these characters where we're like, yeah, they're real strong and badass, and they can do all this cool stuff, and they're super smart, and and they're ugly, whatever.
And they're ugly. They're not going to get a good price
And
at the
we
vendors.
wouldn't role play them as uncharismatic. We'd just be like, oh, and they're ugly. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and there's so much more to the concept than that. But
Yeah.
and so there are definitely some of those too. There's a lot of people who I'm like, I don't know if they're good at, but every once in a while I catch myself. I'm like, whenever I find myself, because like Ryan Reynolds, Reynolds is a good actor. He's quite a good actor. He's not mind blowing. I don't think he should be like. There are no performances of his that like I keep with me and think about or anything like that. But he's perfectly good. He gets cast in a lot of the same things all the time. He's also a very attractive man. But I also wouldn't go around saying I'm a really big Ryan Reynolds fan. But I find myself saying I'm a really big so and so fan, and then sometimes I have to stop and be like, wait, why are you a really big fan? Because in a lot of cases I can say I'm a really big fan because da 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 da. Like I can name movies, I can name performances and things. But then other times I'm just like, wait, why did I say that? What made you think that? And Olivia Cook's a good example. Like I haven't seen anything that's blown me away, but everything I've seen I've enjoyed. But I also find her very nice to look at. And like I even enjoyed her in. She was the lead in that Ouija movie, the first one, not the good prequel. The first one, she was the lead in that. That movie was terrible. I still liked looking at it, but yeah, that movie sucked. And
that's food for thought.
Yeah, and I don't want to turn it into a prurient thing. There are some people that I like in movies because they're hot and they tend to take their clothes off in most movies they're in, and that's a different thing.
Yeah,
that's not. I've never seen Olivia Cook do anything like that, and that's not. I find her attractive, and that bleeds over. That's the constant problem of. You probably never had this experience because you're you. I remember the person and the age where I finally, as a teenager, hit a point that I found someone so unattractive as like personality wise that I ceased to find them attractive physically, and up to that point had found them quite attractive physically. It was a fellow student of mine, and I found them very. I was a teenager, so everybody I found hot, I thought about how hot they were, and I would fantasize about them or whatever all the time. And this one, I got to know them enough, and they were such a person that I hated their personality that I could no longer think of them as attractive physically. And the older I get, the more that happens, and I like that. I feel like that's a good thing. I feel like that means my mind is probably thinking in more specific terms, and it seldom is so intense as that, but it does happen. And that's why the other way sometimes worries me. Sometimes, can I find somebody so attractive that I just sort of forgive personality? But
I mean, I think there have been times where I made certain assumptions about a person, probably based on how they looked, that their personality would be a certain way. Found out it wasn't. It's like, oh, and yeah, I think that probably did impact my perception of their physical. Because the thing is, I tend to not really draw a lot of conclusions, at least consciously, about a person's attractiveness until I know them a little bit. But I suspect that's because earlier in my life, I think what most people do. It's like, oh, you like how a person looks, and so you fill in a whole bunch of blanks about what their personality must be like. Then you find out that's not true, and you're like, oh. And I think for some people like me, it's like, okay, well, I'm not even gonna like, I can't help but notice, oh, that person's pretty or whatever. But to feel compelled to like speak to them or get to know them or whatever, I'm gonna have to know more. I can't just go on that they look pretty. That doesn't mean anything.
See, this is why I thought it might not be you, because you, unlike literally every other person in the world, will frequently think about things and be like, that's kind of a problematic line of thought. I'm going to repath my neurons so I don't do that anymore.
Well, it's not exactly like that.
Because no, the exact thing you've talked about has happened to me a lot. I have been unable to stop myself from still determining if I find somebody attractive or not, just instant I see them.
Well, again, I'm sure that still happens to me, but it's kind of buried now under a whole lot of other thought processes and things like. No, just habits of thought. You develop different habits of thinking and processing things. I don't think I repress anything or suppress anything. I just think about it differently, which that happens when you, like you said yourself, the older you get, the more you do this kind of processing through this kind of thing. That just happens. People.
I think some of that's just age, and some of that is like
Mm.
the internet exists. If you want to see pretty people, it's not hard to do.
You think that's a thing? I've wondered about that, and kind of recently I've been thinking about that actually, is like, was it hard? Is it, do people, like you said, when they have access to all the kinds of visual stimuli they want in terms of attractive people or pretty people or sexual scenes or whatever it is, that sort of, I don't know, they get desensitized to it a little bit, and so therefore it's not as, it takes the mystery out of it, or it takes the thrill out of it or something, do you think?
I mean, there is theoretically any stimuli that is too any stimulus that is too frequent,
Mm.
you get a little innervated
Desensitized, that's
to.
right. Yeah.
I'm actually trying to figure that out with some things related to me and pornography right now. That I'm like, maybe I should stop that because I think I've had too much of that and it's starting to desensitize me.
Mm.
But uh, people also have very strong opinions about what they're attracted to. Like the number of people I have heard that get very confused about finding a drawing or a digital image attractive or sexy or desirable.
Mm.
And I'm just like, yeah, I got no problem with that.
Mm.
It could be a picture, it could be a cartoon, it could be a digital. I mean, not just by, it's not like I'm attracted to all cartoons. No, but like there are some that are like, and there are some that are very weird that still work. I always find this great. The concept of hypersexualization. Jessica Rabbit is
Mm.
a classic example. A lot of people, myself included, find Jessica Rabbit incredibly attractive. And she's very obviously a cartoon, and a real life version of her would obviously be horrifying. And yet she's very sexy. And it's has to do with some very base brain shit involving how we translate sexual characteristics and what that means and overemphasizing. But I'm one of those people who's never had a I'm one of those people who is very seldom ashamed of what I'm attracted to and turned on to unless it affects my behavior towards other people,
Mm.
how I treat them. But
Yeah,
in the privacy of my own thoughts, I'll be turned on by whatever the fuck I want and I don't
sure,
care.
sure.
Um,
Mm.
so that helps some. I don't know. These are the things. These are the things that plague my head all the time. I'm always questioning this kind of shit, and it's really exhausting. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, if people want to know what anxiety is like, if people want to know what anxiety is like, they basically can listen to me on this podcast.
Mm.
All the crap I worry about, I have in recent years discovered that most people don't worry about it, or at least don't worry to the degree of it. It's
Yeah,
all there.
I've discovered that about my anxiety too. It's like, oh, I just worry about this. This is not something other people are concerned about.
And I'm torn now because I've got the new med thing, and that mostly helped with the depression, and it is so much better. The experience of missing Virginia was another real good example of how good my meds are because
Mm.
it sucked. I did not have a good time that week. I was sad, but I was also constantly aware, like, yeah, this week will be sad.
Yeah,
Next week will be normal again, and like I didn't get depressed. I got sad. I didn't get depressed
right.
per se.
Yeah,
And
difference.
that's a
There's a
huge
difference.
difference.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, so this did this. Could we do more about my anxiety? Like, it's controlled, but I'm like, are there more pills I could take that would make it even better now?
Yeah,
Because that would be nice. Like,
yeah,
I'm
probably.
definitely in a functional place and in a good place for me. But now that I'm so aware of like most people don't live with this and we're changing drugs, I'm like, could we do more? But I also know these drugs come with side effects, and I suffer from some now. And I'm like, do I want to suffer from one? Trish has this with her depression thing. They'll be like, so how is these pills working out? And she's like, this is fine. This is like this or whatever. And they're like, oh, or we can change. And she's like, nope. I am absolutely willing to live with these side effects for what this does for me, and I do not want to experiment.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so then there's that kind of thing. But I'm like, I mean, this month, I'm going to talk to the medication management guy, and I'm like, I don't know, but it's like don't rock the boat. But I'm like, well, in the words of the only good thing about the Wonder Woman 1984 movie, life is good, but it could be better.
Pedro.
Love that man. He's doing too much. I mean, he's got major live long enough to become a villain energy about him. But for right now, I still just adore him. I absolutely adore him. He's so in demand and he's so popular. I'm just like, you can't. Ultimate power corrupts. Like that kind. I'm like, he's gonna lose touch. That's the thing. You become famous enough, and he's becoming so famous so fast, so hard. I'm like, one of these days. But I just adore him now, and also find him extremely attractive, but also very clearly believe in his acting ability. I have seen him in things.
Oh yeah,
no fucker
he's,
can act.
Yeah, he's definitely good at what he does.
Even clips of go find old clips of him as a Satanist on Law and Order. It's amazing. It's kind of hilarious too because it's way overdone, but like he's way into it. Yeah, no, he's literally a Satanist and like a murder suspect in it, and they interrogate him, and he's way out there about it. It's pretty funny.
Nice.
And it's one of those. He's much younger, and he doesn't have the facial hair, and so at first you're like, is that is? I think we're way over time. I think I'm just killing time because I don't want to go back to doing chores and shit. But I need to. I got shit to do. It's hot tonight though. I'm not cooking tonight. We're having cold supper. And the rest of the week I'll cook some stuff.
Oh, is it? Is it hot tonight?
Yeah, today's still getting up in the 90s, and it's probably there already. It was like in the 80s by the time I was dropping Trish off at work.
Man, the heat's just been so awful.
But then the low tonight is 70, and then tomorrow the high is like 72, 73. And the rest of the week it stays in the 70s, and at night it's 50s or low 60s. So.
Huh. Well, the fair.
But no rain.
The fair's going to be this, starts this week, so.
At the farmer's market, I was at the mushroom guy, and there was a couple, I think from somewhere in Britain, who had just moved to Iowa, and they were asking. He sells these kits. That's basically a block of soil that's been impregnated with mushroom spores, so you can grow your own mushrooms. Mm-hmm. And he explained that, and they were going to do it, but they're like, well, we'll have to come back later and do it because this next weekend we're doing the state fair. And I was like, oh yeah, that's coming. Mm-hmm. William will probably be so happy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's not going to be too hot and stuff, but
eating things on sticks.
Well, the only thing on a stick that I can eat there usually is the vegetarian corn dogs or whatever, which are good.
I like cheese.
I mean, I guess
on a stick.
Maybe sometimes they have something like that. Maybe I can maybe have that.
Fried Oreo, fried Twinkie.
Well, so then there's some things I just don't want to have. I don't think
fried Oreo is pretty good.
Maybe I'll try that, but
I wouldn't want to eat a lot of them. But it's pretty good.
I don't think a fried Twinkie doesn't sound good to me at all.
Like, here's the thing. I don't remember what a fried Twinkie tastes like. I don't think it was that impressive. I remember what a fried Oreo tastes like.
Pretty good. Okay.
I mean, it's good. It's very heavy. It's deep fried and battered, but it's pretty good. All right, people, please join us, won't you, in the community. This was episode 699. We've been doing this for a while. Go to the blog, themagictalkinghat.com, and tell us your thought. What's your favorite fried thing on the stick? How attractive do you find Olivia Cooke? Has William been deluding himself all these years that Kate Mulgrew's a good actor when she's not? That's a lie. Kate Mulgrew's a very good actor. Gal Gadot. Did we just shame Gal Gadot for no good reason? Or The Rock. Are you going to tell him and come to my house, beat me up? All of these things and more you could comment on at the blog, themagictalkinghat.com, or you could comment here on YouTube also if you want. Remember to smash that like button. Uh, every time I crack
Like and subscribe.
smash that, yeah, and turn on notifications.
So you don't miss any of our
Click the
videos.
bell so you don't miss. I watched some YouTuber doing that the other day, and they were like, I put up 2 videos a week, but I don't necessarily put them up when you're online. So if you get and I'm just like, how complicated do you think YouTube is? If I'm already subscribing to your channel, it's very easy for me to go check what videos you put up. Don't do any of that, but do interact with us because we like that. Go to the blog, comment here on YouTube if you're on YouTube. Write in the matchwithtalkinghead at gmail.com with stuff there. Apologies again, I fucked up the pure audio file where it was last week. I had the previous weeks again. I have since fixed it. I don't know why this keeps happening lately. I do have to pull the link from the previous week and then change the number, but it should be. I don't know what my problem is. So if you find that you're listening to an episode and you're like, this is just last week's episode, please let me know on the blog or wherever. Um, or if you know how to get a hold of me personally, do that so I can fix it. Because lately it's only been at the weekend. I know some of you still listen audio wise and don't watch on YouTube. So apologies for that. And then otherwise, listen again next week because yeah, hitting the wrong buttons. Anyway, I was gonna say you're only as much used to us as the most recent episode you've listened to.